exorcism, there were approximately 7 or 8 exorcists appointed in the United States, formally appointed. Occasionally, when some priest would be, given special permission here or there, but as far as formally appointed exorcists, this is roughly the year 2000. 7, 8, maybe tops. Now we're looking at 35, 40 in dioceses across the United States. The reality is changing. Is the devil any more than he was before? He can't reproduce himself. There are only so many demons. You debate how much as far as there's more activity, less activity. That's another whole topic, but the reality is that at least in the mind of the church and the practice of the church, this reality is changing. I grew up at a time, I don't know about you, I was born in 1961, you can do the math as far as age. But I was a child of, in a sense, the 60s, the 70s. I grew up as a Catholic boy in Cross Plains, Wisconsin, just west of Madison, with all the beautiful burlap banners and felt butterflies, and that was the substance of those days. It was ray wrapped and up with Jesus, and all those kinds of things. But sadly, too, the substance was lacking. And I'm not just talking about the teaching of the devil or the reality of the devil. There was lots of things that were just kind of skipped over. But also, too, realize I'm not a restorationist. And we go back to everything was somehow better when everything was lacking. The Spirit of God propels us forward. And so, just simply say, well, things were much better then. Well, they were different. And perhaps at that period of time they were better. Were they translated to our current time? Who knows? But anyway, so first our point is to say, the context we find ourselves in, people believing in either the devil doesn't exist or is Bible rock, bush, or shrub. First is that lack of training the Catholic faith. Second, we have to know our culture. We have to know where we're living, who we're living with, how we interact, and what is our world. And we know that our current culture, without any kind of substantive teaching, has wandered. A couple of ways. There's disenchantment. Disenchantment with organized religion, disenchantment with the church. Certainly the scandal of abuse has not helped us. But it's a reality. It's sinful human nature. Welcome to life. There's a great deal of experimentation. Experimentation in other religions, in other cultures, in other practices. Esoteric religions, the growth of practice of different things from Wicca to New Age, these kinds of things. And of course, we live in a politically correct world, and so you can't say anything to anyone about any subject. And so we're caught. We're afraid to make a stance. There's no objective moral truths for many. Catholicism has simply come to be seen as one more religious tradition than others. Nothing sets it apart. It's lost in mix. There's a fascination, too, not only experimentation, but there is fascination with other religious traditions. Traditions that are not grounded in a monotheistic belief system. There is only one God. Only one. But of course, no doubt, curiosity is part of the human animal. For good, no doubt, but also for destruction. seductive voice of the evil one, always at work in salvation history. You don't have to believe me. Go look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 491. The seductive voice, those exact words, that tempted our first parents, is the same seductive voice that's woven in and out of human history. The same seductive voice that is at work in our lives. It's not unlike what Paul VI was saying on that November day, that interference, something always there, below the surface, subtle, easy. Go back to Eden. It's a piece of fruit. What's the matter? Take a bite of it, because I know you're not going to die. You become like God. Go on. And such is salvation history. Go on. It won't hurt you. Give it a try. One of the greatest challenges ahead of us is catechizing our faithful. Basic, foundational stuff. I see that job on a daily basis as a pastor of a parish in the suburbs of Chicago. How many people sitting in the pews are clueless as far as the substance of what our Catholic faith is? Is it their fault? In part, no. You can't be responsible if you haven't received it, if you haven't been given it. And in many ways, the church at her part has fumbled through it over these last 20, 30, 40 years. It's not a perfect society. It's a world in need of God's redemptive grace and His help. But we so basically need the teachings of our tradition, of our faith. However, in whatever capacity you're able to do that, it starts one person at a time, one person to one person. We share the faith, we spread the faith, we share our own experiences of God concretely working in our lives. We give witness to the truth. We stand up boldly as children of the light, not apologizing for it, not compromising it, not excusing it away. We are who we are, baptized into Jesus Christ. And we shouldn't be apologizing for that. So then, with all of that said, what is our tradition? As you may guess, there's an expansive amount of material and a discussion on this level. So I'm going to try and kind of skip through as best we can. And I want to focus on just 4 pieces of it in brief, starting with the New Testament, moving to the magisterial teachings of the church, following with papal teachings, and then the Catechism of the Catholic Church. The New Testament, all of these topics speak about the existence and the nature of the devil. In the mind of the church, the devil is real. He's very alive and very well on planet Earth. As a book of many years ago is entitled. The New Testament. The devil or demons occupy an important place throughout the New Testament. One reckoning suggests that there are 188 entries under the various names or titles. Devil, demon, Satan, Beelzebub, dragon, beast. Another suggests 130 entries. It depends upon which translation of Scripture you're using. The New Testament is prolific on the ordinary and the extraordinary effects of demonic activity. For Jesus Christ, the devil is real. And the coming of his kingdom, some beginning of the decline of the work of the evil one. However, in all of the New Testament, there are no physical descriptions of demons themselves. They are defined by how they function. 2 instances. John chapter 8, verse 44. The devil is a murderer from the beginning. He is a liar and the father of lies. Perhaps the most descriptive and useful job description, if you will, of the evil one, the most succinct. You know a tree by its fruit, don't you? It's pretty much the evil one. Go back to Eden. The letter of James, chapter 2, verse 19, tells us that the demons believe that God is one. We've got a lot of people that don't believe God is one. The demons do. And they tremble. The demons tremble before their Creator. Moving to magisterial teachings, to begin, I want to clearly note that most of the statements which the church has made about the devil are responses to and clarifications of distorted notions, rather than responses to doubts about the devil's existence. It's a distinction, important distinction. We go back to the Council of Braga, which took place in Portugal, now Portugal, the year 561. Among its statements, I quote, "If anyone says that the devil was not first a good angel created by God, or that his nature was not the work of God, but that he emerged from darkness and had no creator, but is himself the principle and substance of evil, let them be anathema." That's the teaching of the church, the consistent teaching of the church. God cannot create evil. God created only good. But all of those pure spirits, those angels that God created, they also had free will, free choice. The fall of the angels is not unlike the fall of humankind, not God's creation. We turn then to the Fourth Lateran Council in the year 1215. In his profession of faith, we firmly believe and openly confess that there is one and only one true God, creator of all visible and invisible things, spiritual and corporeal reality, who by his almighty power, together with the beginning of time, wrought out of nothing both kinds of creatures, spiritual and corporeal, namely angelic and earthly, and then at length the human creature so constituted as to partake of both spirit and matter. The devil indeed and other demons in their nature were created by God as good, but on their own they became evil. Yeah. By the suggestion of the devil, humans sinned. The Council of Trent, 1546, on its decree on original sin, reaffirms the teachings that I have stated to this point. It restates its understanding of the role of the works of the devil. And let me skip ahead to the Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 1965. It's interesting. Given that period of history and all that was going on in the world, and yet Blessed John XXIII's adjournamento, calling for the opening of the window